So we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Lauren Cameron Camasco. I'm the current president of AGEM, and we want to welcome everyone who is able to join our webinar highlighting the pathways in geriatric emergency medicine. I wanted to thank our membership and outreach committee for their hard work in putting this together for us, and I'm hoping that you find it informative and interesting, and that you can gain further insight into different career opportunities within Geri EM, from everything from research, administration, education, and clinical medicine. So right now I'm going to hand it off to Surya Ahmad, who will provide a further introduction. She's done a lot of work putting this together, so thank you to Surya, and you can take it from here. Thanks.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks everyone for joining. It looks like we're getting a lot of people slowly coming in right now. So I'm gonna give it like, you wanna wait like 2 minutes? Because I think we have people joining. You wanna wait till like 7:04 and then we can start? And see if we get any more. Okay, well, that people can join. So yeah, as Lauren said, thank you guys so much for joining. We're really excited that we're able to do this event for the second time. The first Leaders in Geriatric EM event was in December 2020. It was hosted by, at the time, President of SAM AGEM, Sean Liu, and myself. And the goal was to basically highlight just leaders in geriatric EM and kind of share what AGEM does and get people excited about AGEM. And since then, our membership has grown immensely. It's exciting to see how many more people we have now than 2-3 years ago. It's really great. People from, all over the US and globally, Canada and everywhere else. Well, actually, mostly North America, but it's exciting. Other than that, so this year the event kind of evolved. The goal was to share for residents and medical students basically career pathways in geriatric emergency medicine, and kind of highlight all the varied career paths and possibilities within the field, and basically highlight leaders in geriatric EM all over the US, and then in different stages of their career, sharing their career experience and showing that there's so many different pathways, and then inspiring early medical students, residents, and show them like what a niche within emergency medicine, and kind of what that looks like and how that can impact their career trajectory and inspire them. So we're going to get into some of the speakers. I'm going to introduce 2 speakers tonight, Dr. Jeff Caterino and Dr. Mark Rosenberg. Thank you both so much for joining us. So first, I'm going to introduce Jeff Caterino. Dr. Caterino is the professor and chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine, professor of internal medicine, and chief of emergency medical services for the Ohio State University. He completed his combined emergency medicine, internal medicine residency at Allegheny General Hospital, where he served as chief resident. His academic and research interests center around geriatric emergency medicine, with funding since 2007 with various grants. And he's the past chair of the SAM Academy of Geriatric Emergency Medicine, and was an author on the original geriatric ED guidelines, which serve as the foundation for the creation of ACEP's geriatric ED service program. So going to hand it over to Jeff Caterino. Thank you.
Thanks, Surya. And that was an author, certainly not the first author of those geriatric ED guidelines. So just want to make, I was somewhere nicely in the middle, not showing off, not falling behind. So thanks. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be kind of invited to this group. It's great to see old friends that we're slowly getting back together now. And really what they asked us to do was talk a little bit about how we got involved in geriatrics and what our career pathway is, and kind of where we see geriatrics going in 5 minutes or less. So I will try not to pontificate too much. But I actually got started in residency. So I was at Allegheny General doing my EMIM residency, and it was basically a research project. And one nice thing about the internal medicine side was I got to kind of see diagnostic uncertainty, the breadth of these patients, the complexity of geriatric patients, and kind of love that. I've kind of always loved diagnostics and the diagnostic puzzle. And that's what kind of was what has been the foundation of the research I've done for the last 15 or 20 years. The key component, though, really, once you kind of found that interest, was the mentoring in the group, the nascent group of geriatricians back then. And in 2004, it may have been between 10 and 20 people that were even talking about this in the country. But there was some grant funding. Chris Carpenter was actually a year ahead of me at my institution. He was my chief resident. I don't like to admit to that, but he was. But also, you know, when you went nationally and you heard about these grants and opportunities, and this small group of people had banded together. And we thought about, you know, how big the pond was in cardiology, et cetera. The pond was pretty small in geriatric emergency medicine. So there was opportunity there. There was excitement there. And I think, and the key though was a core of people, Lowell Gerson and many others, who could guide you in your early career. And I think that holds today, holds true today in geriatric EM. Those of us who've been doing it for 20 years now, I hope are doing the same for those coming behind us. And I think what you'll find is what I found, and what I still think is there, is that the interest in geriatrics and the willingness to mentor and help and guide is sort of agnostic of institution or area. And you will find that that this is a community that basically takes anyone who's interested and helps them succeed and find what that pathway is. And so that's kind of how I got started. And as I went through, as my kind of career built, I got some funding. I was, doing, additional research projects, again, with advice and mentoring and exchanging of grants with many other people. Then there was opportunity. It was a great way to get involved nationally. With AGEM in particular, where I've been most active, or was most active, it really was my introduction to national leadership positions. It was my introduction to how do you, function in a group where people are at different places and meeting occasionally, and how do you create a product? And so I think I was the second or third president of AGEM, probably not ready for it at the time, but it was exciting. It was fun. And it taught a huge skill set. And so that also helped develop. That's something I still use today as a chair. And you got to meet people nationally. I think that having that sort of community has just been career sustaining. You look forward to meetings, you get energized. You have a group of friends outside of your kind of hometown. Just, I got 3 kids. I have no time for friends here, but I got friends in AGEM at least, which is great. So that's kind of my journey. And as I developed an interest, I remained interested in research, and it trying to kind of transition to mentoring. And so now, again, helping that next generation of researchers, and there's just so much talent in the area, and really helping people succeed. And that becomes the most rewarding thing, seeing mentees succeed and people, again, rise up and succeed. I think that's where we're going. I think we are, from a group of 10 or 20, have now a broad foundation, not just in research, but in administration. You've got now several chairs of who come up through the geriatrics, some better than others, but several chairs. You've got people in education, nationally known. We have all the operations in the geriatric guidelines and the geriatric ED process. And so if you like the area, you can find a place to succeed, and a place to kind of see your passion. And frankly, you can pivot a little bit. And obviously I'm now in administration, but the skill set transfers, and it gives you a foundation, to do that. I know I was only supposed to have 5 minutes, so that's a little bit brief of the story, and kind of, I think going forward, I think what your passion is in geriatrics, we're now broad enough that that area is open to you. And including subspecialties, geriatric oncology, geriatric EMS, whatever it may be. I think, those combos are there, and we could talk about that at some point. So, all right. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caterino. Great to get to know you more and hear more about what you've done. I'm going to introduce Dr. Mark Rosenberg. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Dr. Mark Rosenberg is a chair emeritus emergency medicine at St. Joseph's Health in Patterson and Wayne, New Jersey. He's board certified in emergency medicine, as well as hospice and palliative medicine. He's the immediate past president of ACEP. He's has several innovations to his credit in the areas of palliative care, geriatrics, population health, and pain and addiction management. One program is a multidisciplinary acute pain management program that not only helps patients with painful conditions without using opioids, but also helps those patients with drug dependency and addiction. Dr. Rosenberg is a principal author of the Geriatric Emergency Department Guidelines. He's written many articles and chapters on geriatrics, palliative care, pain management, and ED innovations, and has lectured internationally. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Mark Rosenberg. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here today. Every time I have a chance to talk about how I got into geriatrics is always a pleasure for me because it's a very personal story, very different than Dr. Caterino's, but nonetheless brought us to the same point in time to put together the geriatric guidelines, which I will always value that friendship and that relationship. But I did not like geriatrics. I was an emergency physician, loved being in the pit, loved working hard, loved trauma, loved all that type of thing. And myself, I didn't like old people. I didn't like to take care of them for a lot of immature and bad reasons. I never really thought of the fact that my mom was older, my grandmom was older, and they were important to me. So to learn how to take care of them was critically important in my career, but I didn't realize it yet. And in 2002, I got a call from my mom saying that she lived in Florida, I lived in New Jersey, and she said, I have this pulsatile mass in my abdomen, what should I do? And I got her over to a hospital in Fort Lauderdale, Broward General, and indeed she had a thoracoabdominal aortic aneurysm, had surgery and cardiac surgery, and after 9 months in the hospital, she came out much more frail than she was when she went in. She required dialysis and she hated it. And she would frequently end up back in the emergency department in the busy downtown area of Fort Lauderdale and was scared to death and couldn't stand it. One time she signed out AMA. She was lightheaded after dialysis, fell, injured her knee, hit her head. And she came to me and she said, you know, Mark, you need to build an emergency department. You did this for pediatrics. Build an emergency department for people like me, older people or people who are really frail. So we got together with her friends who played bridge and mahjong, and we asked them what would they want in the geriatric emergency department, and they told us. They wanted it to be quiet and not a place where they were afraid. They wanted to have food or tea. They wanted to be able to, if they forgot their glasses, have glasses that were available for them, or other things that were different amenities. They didn't want anything about quality of care, but it was all about making a better place for mom to go when she had to go into the emergency department. We developed a geriatric emergency department concept that had the walls and the lighting and everything that people wanted. This was not from a research project. This was organic from people who wanted this for themselves. And I was able at St. Joseph's to build this. Our emergency department was growing. We needed more space, and we put it up on the 3rd floor of the hospital above the emergency department. It was for functionally independent seniors, and we would bring them upstairs, and we try to pipe in music. We try to make it a nice place. And nonetheless, we made lots of mistakes, and we learned a lot. But at that time, a lot of departments across the country were starting to say they were geriatric emergency departments. So Jeff and myself and many others got together and said, you know, we need to come up with some guidelines. And we started with what the guidelines were from my mom and her friends, but put in a lot of clinical factors that were necessary for taking care of frail seniors. And eventually we put together the geriatric emergency department guidelines. These guidelines really were the cornerstone to developing an accreditation program. And we eventually developed the the Geriatric Emergency Department Accreditation Program. By the way, I want you to know, when we developed the guidelines, this was done by 4 organizations at one time. It was ENA, ACEP, SAEM, and AGS, American Geriatric Society. So we had input from all of them. And at the same month, all of us put this article, the Geriatric Emergency Department Guidelines, into our journals. So it all went out at one time. It instantly became the standard. Once we developed the accreditation, it was very slow starting. Chris Carpenter was a big part of it, Jeff, all of us. To date, I got the data from yesterday. There's 500 geriatric emergency departments in 46 states, mainly California and New York, 24 healthcare systems, 6 different countries, and that's growing rapidly. And there's a large pipeline of almost 400 emergency departments that want to become accredited in geriatrics. This is a huge growing field. And this is something I couldn't change my life, allowed me to become a specialist in an area that I was passionate about. When we opened up the Geriatric Emergency Department at St. Joe's, that was in April. I went to see my mom in May, showed her pictures. She was really frail and failing, and she died before she had a chance to visit the geriatric ED. But from a personal point of view, geriatrics is near and dear to my heart. And as I said, changed my career. But I want to talk about one other thing. And I want to talk about, this is kind of weird, and I know I'm taking up too much time, but it's important. There's a lot of physicians now who are aging in emergency medicine. And we recently put together a geriatric section, that's funny, a retirement section, those who are thinking about clinical retirement. And one of the things that all these physicians are saying is that the most important thing in your career is to have diversity, to have more than just working in the emergency department, to be able to be that geriatric emergency physician, to specialize, as Jeff said, in oncology or something else where you're really painting a niche for yourself. It gives you the ability to prolong your career, prevents burnout, and really makes a difference. So as I look back on my career, there is nothing that has been more of a cornerstone to who I am than the geriatric initiative. And I hope you all look into this. And remember, whether you think you like geriatrics or you don't, I bet you love your grandparents, particularly your grandmom, you love your parents, and do this for them so that they can have the best care in our nation's emergency departments possible. And Jeff spent his career doing this. I did as well. And I'll tell you, I never look back. This has been very rewarding and something I really, really, really recommend. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosenberg. Lauren, now we can break up into the breakout rooms.
Yep, so we're going to split the audience in half. We're going to have 2 breakout rooms, one research and the other will be administration and clinical. And you'll have the opportunity then to hear from more leaders in Geri EM speaking about their experience. And then we're hoping to have some discussion and question and answers during that time. We'll then, after 20 minutes, switch, and then you'll have the opportunity to go to the other room. And after that, we'll come back together as a wrap-up session. But thank you so much to Dr. Rosenberg and Dr. Caterino. It was great to hear from you and hear those additional stories. And I think SAAM is going to split us into our breakout rooms. Just hang tight.
Hi, everyone. So I think some people probably got cut off during the breakout rooms, but we're all back in the main group. The plan now was for a quick Q&A. I know we did some within the individual, but if anyone has any questions for the speakers, Dr. Caterino and Dr. Rosenberg, for them, any questions for the group, I was going to just open this up, and you can also send it in the chat group too. If you have any specific things you want to share, ask the questions in there or out loud. Whatever anyone's feeling.
And I know we're we're over time. So thank you. And just for those that have to pop off, thanks so much for being able to join. And I think if we can probably, if there are no questions in the chat, Melissa, if you could share the, looks like,
One question, what's the status of the new updated geriatric ED guidelines?
great question, Matt. And actually, if we still, is Sean still on? Dr. Sean Liu, it has been really doing an amazing job coordinating with our efforts for the geriatric guidelines 2.0. Sean, do you want to speak to where we're at briefly with that?
Yeah, they take a long time because we pivoted from doing consensus to a very thorough review of the literature through systematic reviews and then something called grade process. So it's taken a long time. We are just trying to finish the delirium one. So I just was actually writing a version of it today, but one of the PICO questions had a big delay. So, but we have actually 6 groups, delirium, dementia, falls, frailty, and then med safety, and just starting a palliative care one. But it's just really kind of more of a years process, not like we'll have probably 2 in the next 2023, hopefully, and then another 2. So it's much smaller than what the original guidelines were trying to do as far as a one big document. This is sort of a something we'll do, PICO one topic at a time over the next couple of years. So it's much slower because we're being much more thorough and sort of transparent with how we're going to make the recommendations. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of great big studies out there to, that we can really hang our hats on in terms of recommendations. But if you'd like to join us, we need help.
Thanks, Sean, for leading that great effort. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so just to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I do want to, for those that aren't AGEM members, just put in a plug for AGEM. It's free to join. You just go to the SAM, your SAM account to add it. And we hope to see you at SAM 23 in Austin. We have our business meetings. You can save the date for May 17th. That'll be the AGEM annual business meeting. So a great opportunity to see everyone and listen to updates from the experts on what's going on in geriatric emergency medicine. It's at 1:30. And then that evening we'll have our AGEM networking dinner. You can register for that when you register for SAM conference. If you've already registered and want to join, just reach out to us and we'll get that taken care of. So thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate your interest in geriatric EM. Thank you to Drs. Rosenberg and Caterino, as well as our other experts that were involved in the breakout rooms. And feel free to reach out. My email and Surya's email is on the slide here. So thanks so much, everybody, and good night.
Great job. Thanks for having me, guys.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining.
Great to see everybody.